Hi, I'm Rachel and welcome back to Auxhart Gardening. If you're new here, I do a tour of the garden every single Wednesday in order to show you guys not only just the prettiness of the garden, but also how a garden progresses over time. Not just like the peak and all of that, but the struggles and the things that go wrong and the transition periods, even when plants start to naturally die off and you start replacing them with other plants. I want to show you guys all of it so that you can have realistic expectations for your own gardens. Today it is almost 90 degrees outside. It is 88 and still climbing. The plants look withered, and that's normal for the middle of the day, for the sun beating down on them. And I can just see that from here from the porch, but I haven't actually gone in and looked in the garden today. Actually, in about 5 days I've been gone. I went to see the Indy 500 with my family, and now I'm back to look at the garden with you guys and kind of talk through how it's doing right now as we approach kind of the beginning of the peak of the heat of our summer here in South Carolina. Here comes Miss Cada prowling through the tall grass that definitely needs to be cut. Nice sweet girl. Alright, so the first thing we always look at is this trellis over here by the sidewalk. And probably the most obvious thing is that the onions have started to fall down. I also do have baby tomatoes in here. They're looking a little sad from the heat, but overall they have taken pretty good after the transplant. And now with the onions, this is actually about the time that I should start pulling them, I think. With onions, you just wait until they flop over, and at that point they are ready to harvest and cure. So maybe I'll come back later tonight and start making a video for you guys on how exactly to go about doing that. But I'm pretty happy with how these transplants have taken. I haven't noticed any of them die yet, so that's pretty ideal. This mint plant at the front of the row, though, just keeps on floofing up, doesn't it? It looks like it might try going to seed soon. Not sure, but it is gorgeous looking. Okay, so here at the front of the next row, I have my little basils, which honestly actually has grown quite a bit since I last saw it. Maybe almost doubled in size. This one over here is a little slower. And then I think, yeah, there's one buried here under the radish that is going to seed. You can see it's starting to make pods here, but at this point this one is mostly flowers. And this, all of these flowers, this is one radish right here. I know for sure. These things really can make a jungle out of your garden if you let them go to seed. Oh, look. You're starting to get flowers on the peppers. These pepper plants also look like they were probably twice as big as the last time I saw them. They've really kind of floofed up. You'll notice that not all the onions over here on this side have flopped over yet. And so I'm gonna wait until they do to harvest them. But the ones that have flopped, I can go ahead and start pulling. And if you wanted to, you could go ahead and pull them before they flop. But it's just not like the most optimal thing to do, because as long as they have still that solid stem, then they are still actively bulbing up bigger for you. So you could pull it at any time, but if you want the biggest bulb you can get, then you should definitely wait until it flops over on its own. I said I was going to come in tonight and make a separate video about that, but here I am. I just can't stop myself. Pretty much all the onions and peppers look pretty healthy. The onions are definitely bigger than I ever expected. Some of these are like actually kind of monster sized. I think down here there was an even bigger one. Wow, look at these peppers. Oh, look. Back through here, there's a bell pepper forming. Now I'll just have to go back through my my written down chart of the garden and figure out what kind it is. Oh yeah, look at that. That's a big onion. This one hasn't even flopped over yet. And it never went to seed. So it's gonna be a great storage onion. This one down here on the end, I think it's even bigger. Look at that. That's like the sort of onion that you look at in the store and you're like, what did they feed it to make it so big? And the answer for me, it's just compost. Good compost, good watering. All right, coming back to the front of this row to go down the other side, we can check in on this cabbage. The whole head of it got eaten off by a groundhog. And now I have a ton of baby heads, so that's pretty neat. I haven't tried any of the leaves yet. I've just mostly been watching it to see what happens to it. Let's see, the garlic is getting very close as well, just like the onions. You can see the leaves starting to die back, turn brown. They won't flop over the way onions will, but definitely when they're starting to die back like this, that means that the bulb is done growing and you can go ahead and pull it out, which actually this one is dead enough. I probably should go ahead and pull it. It's a little ahead of the rest of them. Look at that bulb. That's nice looking. If this is the small one, I can't wait to see what the big ones look like. As we continue down the row, we reach the eggplants, which, oh, I see my very first eggplant flower. Look at that beautiful little purple thing. These leaves are getting kind of eaten, but last year it was like this too. Not entirely sure what it is, but it doesn't seem to really hinder the growth of these plants too much. You know, it's just little Swiss cheesing going on. New leaves look fine. It seems to be outgrowing its predator. And then further on the row is the turnips that have gone to seed. These are actually finishing up going to seed. You can see how all of these seed pods have turned brown, and I should get these out of the garden probably ASAP before I have like a bajillion turnips seeded here. I've already seen some scattered around the garden trying to sprout up because of seeds I've dropped. But yeah, these you can hear, it's kind of like a little maraca. Those seeds rattling around inside ready to be stored. And then the beets, they're a little farther behind, but I think these will need to come out pretty soon. Haven't seen any finished seeds on these yet, but it's my first time watching these go to seed, so I'm not entirely sure what stage they are at in their process. This kale at the front of the next row here, still big, still hasn't gone to seed, still very much edible. Looking a little floppy right now because of the heat. But when it cools off this evening, it'll perk right up. And hopefully we'll get some rain soon. I think it's been dry since the last garden tour. Oh wow. These leaves are just so big. Gotta find something to do with all this kale. Miss Kata sitting over here in the shade. What a good choice. Oh, and through the leaves you can see Aria. This is my parents' cat that I'm watching. She also looks like she is kind of done with the heat. Alright, so on this trellis I still do have peas and I have onions that are almost done. Peas actually could probably come out today if I wanted, anytime going forward until the next time it rains. I was waiting for these seeds, and now that these pods are all dried out, this is kind of the perfect time to go ahead and harvest some fresh pea seeds for next year. And oh, look at that. On the other side of the trellis where I had planted my cucumbers, I've got some little babies making their second leaf. If you're planting multiples of something like a squash or really anything, I was just thinking about this with cucumbers in particular because somebody asked me about it recently. When you start seeing that first leaf like we just saw, that's a good time to start thinking about thinning out any seedlings that you have planted very, very close together. The radishes back here are making it hard to walk through, and they're just getting started with their jungling. You can see they haven't even really started making pods yet, and they will expand much, much bigger than this once they start making pods. I could probably harvest like, I don't know, a few pounds of radish pods from just a section like this. It's gonna be nuts. and I might not be able to wait for that because there's a lot of summer stuff that needs to go in this area, and I would rather have that than radish pods. However, these flowers are lovely, and I'm sure the bees are enjoying them quite a lot as well. Now, over here on this next trellis, I have noodle beans here, and the telephone peas are finally starting to show dried up pea pods. Well, you can hear kind of the crispiness of that. Oh, look at it, just opened right up. Maybe I'll show you guys what it looks like. It just pops right open. Look at those beautiful pea seeds. That's perfect. Couldn't ask for anything better, honestly. Oh. Look at that. Anyways, peas need to come out so that these have plenty of room and not too much shade as they are starting to get bigger. They're just now at the point where I feel like, yeah, they need their own space. They're getting ready to start climbing up. And from this point on, they will start exploding. These peas are going in my pocket, and hopefully I don't forget about them. I took peas in my pocket all the way up to Indiana because I forgot that they were in there. So yeah, the noodle beans, they will start exploding in kind of the best way. They grow really, really fast. So if I wanted, I could do a whole round now, tear them out, do a whole nother round, and still have plenty of time to get a huge harvest off of both rounds, because I live somewhere where we just have a really, really long growing season, and also noodle beans, they just grow really fast. And behind the trellises are my potatoes, and these are, you can see they're right next to those beets that are going to seed. These are actually probably going to be ready sooner rather than later. I noticed them flowering, and now that they have flowered or have started flowering, I actually don't see any right now. Potatoes, what they do is they will grow up, they will flower, and then they will start dying back, and at that point, you know your potatoes underneath are ready to harvest. So hopefully it won't be too long. These are not supposed to get super huge, and I'll probably replant some of them as the weather cools off after the peak of the summer for a second round of potatoes. All right, and then finally this row that is mostly in the shade feels a lot nicer over here. Radishes at this end. Mostly we're seeing pods on these right now, which means that it's going to stop kind of exploding and start putting more of its energy into expanding the pods that it has. As I've said before, these are perfectly edible. They taste a little bit like a radish, but less intense. They go well in stir fries. They go great pickled. I do have a video where I talk about all the different things you can do with radish pods, and I'll go ahead and link that up here. Something I keep forgetting to show you guys is I actually did plant a few bush beans right along here on the edge. This garlic isn't quite ready to come out, but I wanted to kind of get something started in this area so that, like this, the peppers only come to about halfway through into this bed, mostly because I didn't feel like bending over the ditch too much to try and fit them in. But I figured bush beans, they're easy enough to throw in there, and they'll make good use of that space. You can also see I've taken out a few of the flowering Brussels sprouts to make room for all of these peppers. I've left a few that are producing quite a lot of seeds. And these are taking a while, but I think they're really close to ready. You can see the pods, they're still kind of tough, but they are starting to turn yellow, turn yellow. And so these should be ready to harvest and store soon, and then I can get this plant out of the way entirely. Last week I showed you guys the mushrooms that my straw bale produced, and it has gone through its flush. I harvested a lot off of it, and it has gone quiet again. It will produce more as time goes on. It will fruit a few different times. But right now it's kind of dried out, so I think it's more likely to fruit after a few days of rain, or if I took the time to just water it really deeply for a while. This bale has not yet fruited at all, but these are a different kind of mushroom, so that doesn't concern me really at all. But we'll just have to see how it goes. Alright, we're going to venture into the sun real quick to see how the raised bed and the berries are doing, and then I'm going to get out of the sun. So the cilantro that got knocked down last week hasn't died, still leaning over. still able to produce all of these seeds, which is what I really want out of it at this point. Meow? Y'all hear Kata? What's up, baby? I think she wants to be near wherever I am, but she's feeling really hot, so she just went and sat in the shade next to those bricks. Alright, so everything else looks pretty alright. The sage is kind of covered under the cilantro right now, but I'm not too concerned about it. Sage is pretty hardy, it'll be just fine. Let's see. Thyme, looking great. This Mexican tarragon that I planted took really well. It seems to be doing fine. And stevia coming back now with a vengeance. Looking at the berry patch, could probably use some water. It's looking a little dry out here. The Swan Strawberry is doing quite well. And you can see, even in the midst of the heat, this is putting on fresh new leaves, which is a really good sign. This actually, I'm not sure if this is a berry or not. It's not the right color, but the leaves are like almost the right shape. This one looks like it could have just been potentially randomly deformed because it's not like the rest of them. And I know that berry bushes sometimes put out roots and then come up somewhere a little farther away, but the leaves are the wrong color, so I'm not sure, but I'm not going to pull it out yet until I'm certain that it is not one of my berry bushes trying to come back. Alright, it is hot. My cats are hot, I'm hot, even my phone is a little hot. So I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. Thank you guys for coming with me on this garden tour. Check back next Wednesday for another one, and if you want to go catch up on any you've missed, I've got the playlist for you right here. Until next time, happy gardening.